Hello there everybody, this is Alex from Hardcore Guides, being my guide for Ninja Gaiden 3, Razor's Edge on Master Ninja difficulty. Today we are doing the final day of, well, Ninja Gaiden 3 of course, and that is day 8. We finally made it back to Tokyo, Japan, and this is going to have, in my opinion, and I assume a lot of other people's, one of the worst final boss fights of any Ninja Gaiden for that matter. Again, you know, if you like the game, if you like the final boss, that's fine, but personally, I don't. I think it's just really elongated and stupid, but that's just my own opinion, and, you know, take it as you will, I guess. This is also a relatively longer chapter, and it's filled a lot more with, like, a ton more enemies to deal with, and that's just, you know, unfortunate, but that's just how it is. Also, sorry if you hear my stomach in the background. I just ate. I apologize for that. But starting off, you know, you're going to have, once again, basic mooks once again. For the most part, when it comes to advice in this particular chapter itself, the most I'm going to be able to give you is, you know, specific places to kind of hide. Like, you know, just if you need to, you know, run away and then hide and go for, like, a UT charge, you know, just hide behind, like, the sandbags in this part, or just, like, you know, go back to where you pretty much kind of began and just start charging UTs, you know, try to get the ghosts. And again, if you want to find them, then of course just use bow to sniff them out. Also, something else I want to talk about with the final boss fight is that, if I'm not mistaken, in Vanilla 3 they make it to where getting the ability to take her down with your Nimpo is a lot easier than it is here, if I'm not mistaken, because building up Nimpo in this part is just, in the final boss fight, is just stupidly annoying. And I'm also going to be using the Lunar Staff UT trick for it. Steel on Bone is what you want to go for, and it's what's highly recommended, but for me it was just a little bit too difficult to try to get them to go for it, considering the fact that the final boss just launches nothing but, you know, projectiles, like, just seemingly all the damn time. So, yeah, it's not a fun boss, guys. It's not a fun boss. There's two other boss fights in this chapter specifically that are also going to be here, but they're not too bad compared to her, at least. So, yeah. And once you've you know, come down from that little section, once again, more enemies are going to come, and of course they're going to be assassins, which I tend to find assassins relatively just a little bit more irritating than most of the regular enemies. Just a little bit more irritating than fighting just heavies. Just based on the fact alone that they have some really weird, unblockable, you know, into Steel On Bone attacks that, you know, they start to use. Also, speaking of things, make sure you have the True Inferno, because we're going to be using that on the Chimera. We do use it, I think, before. I think we use the Nimpo, like, twice before we get to the final boss. You're not going to be able to use it on the final boss. You're going to have to get it all back again. So, yeah, I know. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. But, for the most part, True Inferno is what I would recommend having on, especially for the Chimera section, just to kind of, like, just wipe out most of them. If you're not going to be doing that, then Kusarigama, and, you know, charged Kusarigama UT for that section is going to come in handy. For those that want to get to that part later, if you're stuck on that part for in the future. But for these beginning sections, and I know this is going to sound stupid, but, of course, you know, the idea is to obviously not get hit. You know, you definitely don't want to be taking damage in these singular, you know, group sessions that you're pretty much kind of stuck doing. So, now that I know is complete common sense, but trust me, it's one of those things where, like, you really want to kind of save your health for opportunities that, you know, will come and go, that give you health back, of course. And this is, of course, you know, one of them. I kind of forgot about this, not gonna lie. So, if you had lost a lot of health before this, then at least you can get it back. So that's not too bad. But there's going to come some sections later after this that it's just still going to be more group attacks, and you're still going to be fighting bosses. And that's kind of what I'm getting at, is you just really don't want to have to worry about, you know, not going into a boss fight with, like, no health or whatever, and just having to deal with whatever their bullshit is. Which, by the way, I am going to be using the cheese tactic for this. And again, I don't remember the name of the person that I got the cheese from. However, I do not take credit for the scythe maneuver, so at the very least I can promise that I'm not the fellow owner of that trick. So, you know, I apologize for not knowing the name of the person. It's been a while, okay? It's been a while since I actually did recording for this. And yes, I had to steal somebody else's combat prowess to get through this game because, my god, day 8 just sucks. It sucks a lot. It sucks for me, I should say. It sucks for me personally. I don't really much care for it. I almost died there, actually, which would have been unfortunate, but, you know, not like it's a big deal. I can just restart the checkpoint. So, nothing too bad. Now, what makes this particular Grip of Murder section even more worse than, like, the rest is, just like with the last time I think we did Grip of Murder, you know, we have to deal with, like, a ton of enemies that are just way too strong for, you know, getting Steel on Bones. Granted, I think they do lessen the health of the enemies here to make it kind of much easier to get OTs and just to make them, you know, more aggressive. Of course, that much is obvious. To make them a lot more aggressive so that way you can start doing, you know, Steel on Bones and what have you. But it's mostly just these Dragon Fiends that end up being kind of, you know, a lot more troublesome. And then when it comes to these guys, I recommend just going for Steel on Bones on the other smaller enemies, dealing with them first. And whenever you get the chance, you know, just shoot these guys with the bow, run up and just do combos, and then eventually those, you know, die. So, because at this point in the game pretty much just gives you pretty much the full ability to kill them, you know, relatively almost instantly, because Grip of Murder, it's seemingly like it makes it to where enemies die a lot faster, because that's just a 1 UT charge, and I already got a D-limb, so, you know, that's not too bad, really. And I guess that's it, so, cool. I'm trying to think what comes up next. I kind of left this part in just because of the sake of just leaving it out, I guess. Because it's not really like much of anything. You pretty much just attack one guy and there you go. But that's something that's left over from Vanilla 3 of all things, is the Grip of Murder sections where you're kind of just walking around and you have to like swipe back at enemies and stuff. And yeah, they kind of kept it in. So, alright, so this is going to be the next part, which is going to be the hill. And obviously you're going to have a flurry rocket and you're going to have just a regular rocket. I'd say go up, you know, the hill as fast as you can. And just take out, of course, the rocket guys first. Get rid of them because they're going to be annoying. Granted, there is cover that you can take. So if you don't want to go up the hill, you always have the option of just like standing down there and just kind of just avoiding most of their shots via the rock being in the way. But after you take out the first group of IS ninjas, these little turds are going to spawn, and now we're going to deal with ghosts again and more IS ninjas. I still think they're called IS ninjas. I believe so. I could be wrong. Also, for those that have been like keeping up with my guide, and if you're wondering why I'm talking so strange, I don't know if anybody could notice or not, but I'm really kind of worried about explaining things now because it might not seem like it, but okay, to put this into context, so I got a dislike on one of my videos of recent for Ninja Gaiden, and it's kind of put me in this mood of like I'm doing something wrong. Like I'm clearly doing something wrong. I'm not good enough for this. I'm not cut out for this. I must have done something to piss somebody off, but they won't tell me what I did, so it's like I don't know how to improve, and that just bugs me to no end. But it is what it is, you know. I just, you know, if you're gonna dislike, you know, you might as well just, unless you absolutely fucking hate it, then, I don't know, you know, a little criticism wouldn't hurt, you know, just kind of let me know what exactly it is. Is it my commentary that sucks? I mean, granted, I probably won't change much anyway, because I've just kind of have my own groove and my own style of doing things, but, I don't know, I've always been that kind of guy that, like, I see a dislike, and I just immediately just start, you know, self-hating myself and thinking that I'm doing something wrong, clearly, but what I really should be thinking to myself is, well, hey, you know, if I get a dislike, that just means that I've gotten good enough to the point where people start hating me, so there's that. I don't know. But I'm weird like that, so that's why I'm kind of just being really strange with my way of explaining things and speaking, because I just don't want to over-explain, and I don't want to, you know, accidentally say something wrong, I guess. But I'll try to trim it down later, especially when we get to the fights that actually do matter the most, because these fights right here just don't really matter much. These are really just kind of just run-of-the-mill, just Muso group enemy type fights here. Even though this game really isn't even a Muso game, it's straight up just regular-ass Ninja Gaiden. It just happens to have a butt-fuck ton of enemies in these specific sections. And not only that, but like this game entirely just has that too. And I wonder if that's carried over from Vanilla 3. For having the Steel on Bone just pretty much be used to just wipe out, you know, groups and groups and groups of enemies. So I wonder if that's something that they tried carrying over, but then they just kind of just nerfed the Steel on Bone to only go up to 2, or 4, sorry. I don't know, why is that 2? But granted, you know, in my opinion, I think they should have definitely lowered the amount of enemies that do spawn. Like, Steel on Bone's great and all, but, like, I don't know. I do like Steel on Bone being, you know, dropped down to 4, because I feel like it's a lot more balanced. But, personally, if it was me, you know, I would just drop down. I would just lower the amount of enemies that spawn in a lot of these sections, especially on day 8, because, my god, there's just too many. But that's just my own personal take on it. Not like it matters, because you're pretty much just doing the same thing you've been doing the whole time anyway. It's just, it just goes on forever, man. And especially with the crystallized enemies, those are the worst things that they've ever added, in my opinion. I hate fighting the crystallized enemies. I really hate them. I don't mind Fiends, you know, I don't mind Fiends, I don't mind Black Spider Clan, I don't mind any of them, you know, but that's probably just my nostalgia bias talking. From, you know, like Ninja Gaiden 2 and Ninja Gaiden 1 and what have you. Just being kind of used to those guys, and then having, like, new enemies in 3, which is always great to have new enemies, of course, but the crystallized enemies just bug the shit out of me. Actually, I used to have a harder time fighting them back when I was younger, because for some reason I'd always get grabbed by that goddamn, when they're de-limbed, when they're, you know, de-legged, and they start, like, charging toward you to try to explode you. Also, for those that are wondering, pretty much what I'm trying to do, but I'm unfortunately, you know, failing. I'm failing unsuccessfully here. Or failing successfully. No, I don't know. Words don't... Yeah, I'm bad. Basically, I'm trying to go for UTs is what I'm trying to get off, but it's a lot harder to do because these guys don't make it... They definitely don't make it that easy to do. Black Spider Clan just makes it incredibly hard to get those UTs to come out sometimes because they just spam you with bombs, they spam you with everything. Granted, I don't think they do explosive kunais anymore. I think that's been something that's been kind of gone. I haven't really noticed it much. It mostly seems to be just like these other group of ninjas that end up using like these fire arrows and stuff. So I wonder if they changed it out for that, possibly, but I don't know. But granted, they also have the bombs too, so it's hard to say. But yeah, for the most part, you kind of don't really need my help with this that much, all things considered, because for a lot of this, it's just literally just doing the same fights over and over again. And like I've explained before, you know, if you're having trouble, just try to bait out Steel on Bones. If that's not working, then just go for UTs. And that's pretty much all you really have to do for this part, is just find a spot, run away, find a nice spot to hide into, and then just UT, and there you go. I did take quite a bit of damage, but I really don't care for my own sake. I'm not doing like a no damage run anyway, so it's not like it's a big deal. Oh, that reminds me, speaking of which, I don't know if this is something I'm going to ever do on this channel. I would like to beat the game first before I actually actively do it. But I have actually thought about, and I started playing it yesterday, and I got to like the 5th mission. But I want to do a Vanquish God Hard no upgrade run, just because I think that'd be kind of fun. So I got up to like mission 5, and I did pretty okay. And the thing is, I haven't seen anybody do it yet. I've seen somebody do like hard, and they fought the final boss on hard mode. No EMPs, which is just godlike already. Like, that's just insane that you could just do that. So not only did they beat the bogeys, you know, on hard with no EMPs and no AR, which is just ridiculous, but they also had no upgrades too. So it's like, I saw that there was a no upgrade run, or not a no upgrade run, but at least for the final boss there was a no upgrade fight. And I'm kind of curious if you could potentially get through the game with no upgrades. I feel like you could, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So if anybody, you know, has tried it yourself, I would love to hear about it personally. Because I love Vanquish. I love Vanquish a lot. I would love to do another run of Vanquish. If anything, I can always just do a hard mode guide, because God Hard is an unlockable mode. And when it comes to unlockable modes, you know, like for this game, for instance, like I could have just done Ultimate Ninja if I wanted the absolute truest experience of hard difficulty, but I went for Master Ninja. And you could say the same thing about like Resident Evil 4 Remake. You know, I could just do hardcore. I don't have to do professional mode. Which, by the way, professional mode is just eating my ass, guys. It's eating my ass. I can't do it. Leon's too fucking slow, man. He's just too fucking slow for me. And I don't want to sound like an elitist prick or anything like that, but I think I said this before. It might piss somebody off, but I'm not too keen on the remake. I like Mercenaries, but I'm not too keen on the remake, mainly because hard mode is just so ridiculous because of Leon's just poor movement speed, in my opinion. I feel like, I mean, somebody else has said before that, you know, I'm not basing my opinions on somebody else. I'm just, you know, that's how I felt, and then I found out that some other people were like, yeah, it's kind of slow and what have you. So it still can be a fun game, but what the fuck am I doing? Hold on. I must have forgot to edit this part out. I apologize for this. I'll tell you guys right now, it's about to end in like a minute, or less than a minute. Let's see. At 1:06:40 is when the next split is, so I forgot to cut this. Oops, that's fine. That's okay, it's no big deal. Unless I was just thinking that hard. There's no way I could have been thinking that hard. God damn, okay. Because I usually leave that stuff in. I usually leave like in the upgrade screen so you guys can see what I'm upgrading. But then I accidentally fudged up. Also, I did die in this part, but that's just the nature of things. So, this next section, this one's a little fun and a little irritating, both at the same time. It starts off pretty fun because you're fighting like a nice small group of mages. Nothing too bad. Just essentially just use bow, you know, from a distance, shoot them down. And then go for OTs, especially if you decapitate them too. Try to go for that OT and just, you know, get that going. But then, like, the next part that comes up after this, like, the very next fight after this is just a little more brutal because now you have to deal with Alchemist again, and that's just not fun. But anyway, back to the RE4 remake thing. I do want to say, like, you know, it's a fine game. It's just, I still prefer OG. That's just me, but I started noticing that a few of the YouTubers that I watch seem to have the same opinion. But granted, you know, just so you guys know, I don't base my opinions completely off of the YouTubers I watch. Trust me, I don't. You know, I watch Critical sometimes here and there, but even then, I don't even agree with, like, most, if not all of his opinions on things. Especially his tier lists. So, I'm very adamant about my own opinions on things, but I've noticed that people have also expressed Leon's slowness. But then again, you know, I play games on hard, and I kind of want games to feel... I want games to feel good and play good. So, that's just how I am. I need my speed, man. I need my speed. Anyway, so, to basically kind of just cover what's going on here, as you can see, I'm pretty much just charging up my bow shots. I'm just launching them down, you know, down the lane, to essentially just take out any oncomers that are coming toward me. And if anybody happens to kind of sneak through, as in a teleport, you know, teleporting mage, then yeah. So, this might be a little cheeky, but if you charge up your bow shot, you can actually knock out a couple of these guys from a distance. And they can't really do much. The only one that can do anything, of course, is the one that has magic. However, if he happens to be jumping in air, he can't block himself. So, but once one of them starts getting kind of a little too close for comfort, you know, just start using your UTs and just blast them. But yeah, you can just stand from all the way back here and just start launching bow shots and just get a nice few good, easy, cheap hits in, and just go from there if you wished. So that's just, you know, how I started that whole thing off. And then, of course, I just, you know, wail into UTs and then try to get some combos going and then break their magic attacks because, you know, I don't want them guarding, you know, my stuff. I always hate getting grabbed by that because I always think that I'm going to get stuck in that one grab animation where they just kind of suck you dry. And that one always sucks. You never want to get sucked dry by these damn alchemist bastards. These white robe motherfuckers. So, yep, that takes out like a couple of them. I fortunately got Bloody Rage, and it seems like, you know, another group of enemies had spawned. But something else to keep in mind, too, is these guys, you know, they might not have an actual health bar, but they do have a visual cue health bar, which is really cool, and I like that. So, like, the more bloody they are, the more obvious at that point that the game's trying to make is, like, you know, hey, they're about to die. So, you know, that's always a good sign. But whenever the going gets tough, just, you know, come back here and charge UTs like usual. And I know, like, these are considered very novice things to do. These are very noob-friendly things to do, but, you know, it's just the way that I ended up playing, so, you know, I could get better, but I just don't really feel like it. It's just Ninja Gaiden 3. For Ultimate Ninja, I might not even, you know, I might have to improve a little bit, but I might not be able to improve that much. Because, you know, it's kind of hard to break away from just doing UT the whole time. Like, that's something that you have to just actively learn how to just break away from and try for yourself. Sorry, I had to yawn there for a second. I'm a little tired. Because we kind of just started the day, like, not that long ago. We've been doing some things for a bit. And I've just had a really long weekend. A really long weekend. I saw the Mario movie. You know, it was pretty good. Did Easter stuff. You know, that was exhausting. And, well, now I'm here recording the last episode of Ninja Gaiden 3, which I'm glad, you know, because we finally made it to the end. And I don't want anybody thinking that I hate this game. Like, I don't. It's just, you know, kind of want to move on to the next stuff in my series of things to play. Also, I did die here, so that's why you see that checkpoint. But coming up, this part is really annoying because there's times where, like, you just kind of you just die for no damn reason. And the best way I can explain this is just hold L2. And if you have to charge up a shot, just charge up a shot and launch it. But the trick to beating this section that I've seemed to have come to notice is the only true way to beat it is just to know where these guys are going to spawn. So as you can see, they kind of just spawn from, like, you know, left to right, left to right. That seems to be the typical kind of just pattern. Left, right, back kind of thing. So just keep that in mind. Keep an eye on where they spawn and go from there. And of course, you know, I died once again. And we got this next little section, and there's going to be some helicopters that are going to come from behind. Now, these guys are not incredibly too hard. Just, you know, consistently keep your lock onto them, and just fire. And, you know, of course, the auto lock, you know, kicks in, and sometimes doesn't work. But again, the key trick to this fight entirely is just knowing who's going to spawn and where they're going to spawn from. So, you know, just keep an eye on where they're spawning on my screen, and then, you know, just if you're doing it yourself, of course, you know, just learn where that spawn is and just take them out. And then for the helicopters, just, you know, shoot in the nose. There's really no reason to not to. And you don't need to worry about charge shots for them, at least. You can just do, like, a few good, easy, simple shots just to knock them down. But if you have the chance or the time or the confidence for it, charged shots on the jetpack guys is something I would kind of recommend, too. Because it just kind of just eliminates 2 to 3 of them at a time, which is nice. Now, coming up is going to be the Jeep section, or not Jeep, but, you know, the truck section, basically, or whatever, and this one's another case of, like, it's not incredibly hard. Once you've gotten to this part, you're pretty much relatively okay, as long as you just consistently keep mashing down your shots. It takes 4 shots to kill one, and this is one of those ones where, like, I would recommend not charging up your bow to shoot, and just essentially just, you know, keep piling it in, and then eventually they'll just die off. 3 to 4 shots, it looks like. Okay, time for the next boss fight. I don't remember this guy's name, but it doesn't really matter. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing the dodge up, the slide up, and then spinning triangle attack with the flip scythe. I now have, I think, level 3 scythe, so this is where it's going to work out. This is once again one of those things that I talked about earlier, where I pretty much had I had not figured that out on my own. That was something that was found by somebody else that I watched on YouTube, so credit to them. Now, something else to keep in mind, too, is not only does it have great iframes with the spinning move, but after you've completely wiped him out, you know, and you've gotten to the point where, like, he starts flying and you can't do damage to him, that's when you have to shoot him with the bow. Because he's going to get rid of your bow at this point. And then after you've killed off all those regular enemies, you're going to want to go back into the same, you know, cyclone attack once again. You can fight him legit if you wish. I think you can Steel On Bone these attacks. But I think this is Theodore, actually, isn't it? Looks like him. But yeah, I don't really bother with that, so I just kind of stick with just the typical spinning move. And speaking of Theodore, you know, we're going to pretty much just do the same thing again to him, as we did with his other boss fight here. So, and luckily for us, we also get him as a companion, too. Doesn't last very long, but, you know, it's still there. I mean, granted, we are going after his daughter, so that's kind of the case of why we he would break apart from us. Now, granted, I don't know why he wouldn't just try to stick with us to help. It's not like, you know, the dragon sword can actually kill her, because as far as I'm aware, you know, it can only kill pure evil. So, you know, yeah, the story bits are not that great, but, you know, it is what it is. But this section here, I typically kind of just let Theodore handle most of this. And I stay back with the scythe and just, you know, charge up UTs and let them roll. And pretty much hit them from that little platform that they're coming down from. That little hill slide thing. I know that's not exactly what it is. I'm just... In terms of gaming knowledge here, that's what I'm basically going off on. And yeah, it's pretty much just, you know, sitting down here, letting your shit charge for what it's worth, and then just, you know, launching out and then just waiting for Theodore to kind of clean up whatever his mess is. And then just finishing out the rest. So, kind of simple. Again, a little cheap, but, you know, that's what I'm kind of here for. I'm not here to be flashy by any means. So, I'm just here to win. That's what I want. That's what I need. And then this next part, we're going to be fighting from down here pretty much. I'm going to go back to the Eclipse Scythe again. I don't know why I bothered switching off, knowing that these guys were going to spawn. And pretty much just, if anybody comes down your way, just blast them with, you know, some nice attacks. Because the Eclipse Scythe is really good at combos. And it's kind of hard to kind of just drop that, I guess you could say. But let him deal with the Magna Fiend at first. And there are times where he can get the kill, but for the most part, you're going to have to go in and kind of get it yourself. So, yeah, just, you know, let that be that. Now, granted, he's going to start coming down here eventually, but we're going to do pretty much what we do to a Magna Fiend, just like always. And that's essentially, of course, just, you know, mashing into him and then trying to get him to block attack us, and then just going behind him whenever he tries to hit us. And, of course, you know, if you can get that Steel on Bone, then that's definitely something worth getting for. But yeah, these parts are not too bad, really. You just kind of just charge, you know, Eclipse Scythe, let it kind of roll. And if you happen to get stuck, you know, dealing with this asshole, then of course you could just, you know, do some nice combos, be aggressive, let him block your attack, dodge behind him, you know, rinse, lather, repeat. So, and of course, Steel on Bone, straight into a nice OT kill, and that's pretty much the end of him. I think another one might spawn, but yep, there it is, of course. Not surprising, but granted, we don't have a bow, so we cannot shoot him down. That's where Theodore comes in handy, is you have to let him do it. So keep that in mind that you wouldn't be able to do it, but as soon as the other one spawns in, wherever it spawns in at, just try to get to the opposite end of where it's at, and just let Theodore kind of deal with it again for a little while, to hopefully either take him out himself, or potentially just do enough damage to where you can just kind of go back in and kind of help and just, you know, do whatever you can. Really, these guys these types of fiends are intimidating at first, but when you truly learn what makes them tick, it's one of those cases of they become almost just drastically stupid easy. Because again, like I said, you know, all you're gonna do really is just combo into them, and then eventually they just kind of like block attack you, or they kind of block your attack, and then you just go behind them and hit them, and they just fuck off. It's so simple, but I don't know about Ultimate Ninja mode though. That's the thing. I haven't gotten that point in Ultimate Ninja yet to really truly say how much more aggressive and how much more painful these guys can be. So I'm just kind of just watching at this point. I'm just thinking. I'm kind of running out of things to really kind of talk about, though, because, you know, we've been doing this guide for so long, and that's typically what happens. And I love Ninja Gaiden, you know, and I love doing guides for Ninja Gaiden. But there does come a point in the game when, you know, I start to get kind of like, okay, you know, this is just the same thing over and over again. Like, nothing's truly changing. The most I can say for this entire chapter is just specifically how to beat bosses, and realistically speaking, you know, the way to beat most of the bosses, at least Theodore-wise, is just dash up, circle triangle, you know, spin cyclone move, and there you go. He can't do shit, so. trying to think of what's coming up next. Yes. More of the same once again. And that's where I kind of just eventually get tired of this chapter. It's just the same fucking assholes like the entire time. Also, notice how I'm saving up my Inferno. I'm saving it up once again basically for the Chimeras. Okay, never mind. I'm using it for them. I can't tell if that's just karma that just comes back to kick me in the ass. Or just to make fun of me for that. But I like how as soon as I said I was saving up my True Inferno for the Chimeras, and then the game's like, no, you're not. So, okay. I take that back. I saved up my True Inferno for this part of the game. And then I just kind of light these guys up. Just, use Kusarigama. Mainly because it's really good. It's really good of a weapon against a lot of enemies. And I have level 3 for those that have not been keeping up. I do have level 3 Kusarigama. And that's why, it's just doing wonders, man. It's just doing great. It's so good for a weapon. And for those that, typically play like Dragon Sword only or whatever, this is definitely one of those cases of something I would recommend trying out. Just to see if you like it or not. And even if you don't want to do combos with it, at the very least, you can just use it for UTs, because admittedly, it's really good against those homunculus type, like gorilla and snake enemies. It's really good against those types. Which we will have to fight, I think, coming up the next fight, I believe. I think they're up next, because once you go up this section, you have to climb another section, or you have to I think you have to jump to it, like another apartment complex thing, or whatever building we're on. Speaking of which, I'm starting to get like the vibes of Ghostwire in this section right here. Ghostwire Tokyo. I mean, I know we're literally in Tokyo, I know that, but I'm just saying, like, these buildings specifically, like jumping from building to building, reminds me of that game, which that's not a bad game, really. I heard it's really kind of just short-ish, which, I kind of like shortish games. It's also strange hearing other people just kind of say they don't like it that much, and I'm thinking, like, well, what's wrong with it? It's kind of just a dumb, campy game. And again, I say dumb in the most sincere way of being nice, like, in terms of, like, that's a compliment, because it might not sound like it, but I actually think that, games that I would say are, quote-unquote dumb, what I'm trying to say is silly. That's practically what I'm trying to say. Is I find games like those, that are silly and just don't take themselves too seriously, quite a lot more fun and engaging than a game that does take itself seriously, so. Alright, this part here is going to be really rough, but I'm going to try to get you guys through it the best I can. So, essentially, we're going to be doing the same thing we did last time, but immediately after landing, these guys either spawn in or you have to run up and make them spawn. I think you have to run up and make them spawn. But after you do that, make sure you run back here, start charging UT, and try to hide behind the cover to make sure that you don't get hit by the, the black-robed sword alchemist. We can just call him that, actually, just call him sword alchemist. But essentially, I'm not going to be worrying about the alchemist as much. I'm just going to be focusing on the gorillas and just be using UTs on them. Just essentially just level 1 charged UTs on the gorillas and just take them out. The sword alchemists are pretty much just nothing because, there's so many of these damn gorillas that just kind of get in the way that they pretty much just miss most of their shots and they just can't pretty much just do anything with. And something else that's kind of nice about these guys too is the fact that they actually have a lot less health than, say, their other counterparts. So they definitely make themselves a lot easier to kind of to fend off. And something I'm doing right here is I'm just basically, relying on heavy attacks to kind of go for those OTs. Now, I still recommend going for UT on them instead to make it, just a tad bit easier. And if they start to get a little too aggressive, just, run around the corner and then just kind of let them get stuck on walls, and then you should be fine. So, something else to kind of keep in mind as well is you definitely want to be building up to that True Inferno, which is another reason why I'm doing combos more than I am doing anything else, is not only just for the OTs and what have you, but it's also because I'm trying to get that damn True Inferno to spawn in, which it does eventually come, so, we still have time for it. We're, like, right on the cusp of getting it, so it's not like it's too far off, but still. Something to kind of keep in mind is you definitely want to save it for this part right here. But, if you don't have it yet like I do, then just start, charging up a level 2, possibly level 3 UT with the Kusarigama. stand over here in this corner, and then I just try to focus on the gorilla one from now on. That's usually the one I try to focus on all the time. And if they block your attack, just dodge back and then go back for more hits. Or just, yeah, you know, of course, get out of the way. But yeah, just start wailing on it with the UT. And then once you finally have True Inferno, and whenever you feel like you need to use it, especially when you're losing health like I did there, then just launch the son of a bitch and then kill off, like, you know, at least the first wave of these guys. And then, of course, you know, after that, you know, just charge it once again, and then just, you know, let it ride, like always. But, once again, you know, the next group's going to spawn, and like I said before, I kind of just focus more so on the gorilla guys, just because Theodore's handling the more so projectile-based ones. And the snakes are really not that troublesome, really, because they just tend to kind of rely a little too often on the same poison attack, so it's just never really that much of a big deal. And since it was getting a little bit overwhelming, I kind of just hid back and just tried to bait them into going to my UT and just hitting them that way. But this fight's kind of fun, not gonna lie. This fight's kind of fun. It is fun in a way, but it's also a little bit irritating. But yeah, for the most part, just charge UT to the Kusarigama and you'll be alright. It's not that hard, really, when you think about it. It's intimidating as hell because, I mean, these are 3 chimeras, and these things are, like, incredibly strong and incredibly just scary as shit. So, you know, it's definitely one of those things where it's like, oh man, you know, that's definitely not something I want to get hit by, but it can't happen. There we go. We got, you know, nice, decent karma points, and then we're going to be heading on into the next little area. Make sure you hit this wall because you won't activate the cutscene until you do. Now time to fight Theodore. Okay, so as you saw in that last little section before I continued on, I pretty much just whipped out the scythe once again. And just do the spin circle move once again. You know, spin triangle, dodge, spin triangle, dodge, spin triangle, dodge. There you go. Easy. If you block your attacks, who gives a shit? If you take damage, who gives a shit? Try not to take as much damage as you possibly can. Trust me, because it's going to suck when you get to the final boss. You have to deal with that shit. So if you happen to have taken damage, I would just recommend just restarting your checkpoint. You don't have to no damage it, but, you know, just try not to take as much damage as possible. Now, if you do happen to have 45 out of 50 scarabs and you have the ability to unlock level 5 health, that's also something that you can kind of consider into putting into this fight as well, if you wish. But that's completely up to you. I only had level 4 at this point, so that's where I kind of stand. I know it sucks ass that I had to tell people, like, yeah, you might want to come in with, you know, the scarabs and stuff, but realistically speaking, they're not incredibly too hard to find for the most part. You'll probably end up, you know, beating the game with like 30, 40-ish. So just something to keep in mind is just try to at least get 40 at the very least. Because you definitely want that, True Inferno, yeah, from the earlier fights. You don't need it, but it's something you can have. And that's something else about my guides, too, that I want to kind of talk about is I typically try not to go talk about DLC weapons or DLC items or stuff that helps you, because I feel like that's kind of lame. However, Vanquish, I think, is the exception for that, because I don't think it, like, fucking matters. Because I think the DLC is free anyway, so it's not like you have to pay for it. But I would never try to make people pay for DLC to beat a fucking game. That's just ridiculous. Alright, so anyway, this part is going to be a little bit confusing, but eventually we're going to go into speed up because it's just such a fucking long and daunting fight. But trust me, have patience, go through it, just take your time with this, don't worry. You've got all day, you know, or maybe you do, I don't know. But as you can see, I have a level 3 Lunar Staff, and I'm just basically running from one side of the corner to the other. And there are specific corners you kind of want to hide in because it just keeps you away from her arms. If you're on both of these sides, as you can see, her arm can't reach me. She can't attack me with it, but the projectiles can. So that's something else to kind of keep in mind too. Just watch out for where the projectiles are going to. And whenever you get the chance, when an enemy comes up next to you and you feel like you're about to get hit, or you just want to launch your Lunar Staff, go right for that UT. I would recommend using Lunar Staff just because it's a lot more. It's just a lot easier to kind of get hits in. And Kusarigama is nice and all, but it just never really seems to hit exactly as much as I need, and sometimes it might just kill them too early, and that's not something you want. Something else, too, is the game wants you to go for Steel on Bones, so if you feel good at doing that, that's perfectly reasonable. But yeah, this is where we're going to start speeding this shit up, because this fight is just dog shit. It's complete dog shit. Mainly because of the fact that you're pretty much just stuck having to build up True Inferno, and it's just ridiculous that you have to do this. And my computer is going to start screaming because we are going through fast forward, and that's just how it's going to have to be. But all I'm doing is I'm literally just running from one specific corner of the map to the other corner of the map every time that I UT, and that's just what I'm doing. And, you know, it's really kind of hard to get SOBs, so that's just why I kind of focused on doing UTs. If that's the most safest option for you to do, I would recommend taking it. But like I said, if you want to make it much faster, then Steel on Bones is what you have to go for, but do be careful. And of course, you know, running from one corner of the end to the other makes it a lot easier, one specific corner to the other. Make sure you block this too, because I don't think the game tells you that you have to. I don't think it did. Make sure you block, and then just go for your hits. And for those that are wondering, if you're kind of like me and you kind of forgot about the whole tutorial thing, the reason why QuickTime events even show up is because I have tutorials on. I think it's stupid as shit that you have to have tutorial on just to be able to see your goddamn QuickTime events. Not like they're incredibly too confusing, but, you know, still, it's just one of those things that just pisses me off about this game is why you gotta have that on. I don't know. I just don't know. Alright, so this next part's a little bit more funky. Now, this one does have checkpoints, so I think as soon as you come here, you pretty much get checkpointed. You don't have to do that whole entire True Inferno fight again. And plus, you get a whole full health refill, so it's not too bad. So, let's explain the trick here. If she swipes with her sword, you just, of course, you dodge, like, at the close to last second. Now, something to kind of keep in mind, something that I don't do, but there's something you can do here. And that's doing light attacks only on her arms when she slams them. The reason why you want to do light attacks only is because if you do heavy attacks like I do, then she'll eventually just back off and then try to go for a slam again. But that's completely up to you on that one. That's whatever you want to do. I went for the path of just doing just heavy because I don't care. But it is something to kind of keep in mind, is if you do a heavy attack, she will flinch to it, and she will try to like back up, you know, and try to attack again. So flying swallows, you know, can work, but they can also make it to where you'll limit your options in terms of, you know, what you can do here. So just be fair warned, be careful about that. You know, if you want to get some more extra combos in, I guess, then light attack should just be your go-to. But if you're like me and you don't care either way, then that's fine. Go for whatever you want. If you happen to have the level 5 upgrade or even level 4 or whatever health upgrade by now, I'd recommend putting it on. But if you don't, that's fine, because I think even when she breaks that part of the building, I think it still considers as a checkpoint. I think that... No, it doesn't. I think you have to start over from the beginning, but... Either way, we still get through it. I have, like, a slither of health. I somehow make it through. It's relatively straightforward. Granted, it's completely almost random whether or not she's going to go for that damn sword swipe. But just try to get better at, you know, dodging underneath it, because that's... Realistically, that's the best way of explaining how to deal with that fight, is just understanding when and where things are going to pop up from. So, but for the most part, if I had to guess, I would say doing heavy attacks on her arms and making her arm go back so that she does another slam attack might actually stop her from doing that sword swipe. That's possible. I don't know if that's true, but that could be possible. But anyway, that's it. So this is the part that I'm sure everybody loves to hear. This is the part that I think most of my fans would probably, you know, consider is like the absolute epitome of hardcoring guides quality of approval here. And yeah, so that's Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge on Master Ninja Mode. Will I ever continue to do Ultimate Ninja Mode? Maybe. There's never, you know, set in stone. There's never a guarantee. Will I ever do Yaiba on Hell Mode? I don't know. I have wanted to go back and do Ninja Gaidens before. Maybe I might do more campaign runs of them. Maybe I might do more, or I might get, you know, the OG games and then do them. There's a ton of stuff, but the thing that we're really wanting to hear is what the hell is next for me to do. Well, I don't plan on taking a break just yet. I kind of want to continue doing guides for just a little longer here, and then eventually go on a break. So the next game that has been recorded and finished recording, I have beaten the game. Dante's Inferno on Infernal difficulty is next. So we're back into the hack and slash actions. And after that, I plan on doing Transformers Devastation. And then after that, I plan on doing God of War Chains of Olympus. So those two are going to be interdispersal or whatever. I might do Chains before. I might do Chains after Dante's Inferno. I might do Chains after Transformers Devastation again. I don't know. But for right now, those are the planned ones. Excuse me one sec. Got to cut that commentary up. That's okay. Might be a weird split here, but it works because, you know, it makes sense. So Wolverine at some point I would love to do, and Deadpool I would love to do, and then one day I would love to do DMC 4. Of course, I've mentioned that every single time, but I still would love to do that. And then DMC, you know, Reboot was another one I would love to do at some point too, and then Luigi's Mansion 3. But for right now, Dante's Inferno is confirmed next. After that would be either Transformers Devastation or God of War Chains of Olympus. So those are the three main ones that I can basically tell you right now that are practically either for sure. Well, Dante is for sure, but God of War is for sure as well. Transformers maybe, but I think I probably should. So anyway, that's it. Oh, almost forgot. There is one more thing to explain. One last thing to talk about. What is my rating for this game in terms of difficulty? Out of 10. Well, I think I gave Ninja Gaiden 1 an 8. And I gave Ninja Gaiden 2 a 7. And I would say this is a 7 out of 10. This is definitely on the same par of like Ninja Gaiden 2 in terms of certain difficulties. Steel on Bone does make the game just a tad bit easier, but it's the janky bosses, man. It's the janky bosses. I can deal with the janky ass bosses in Ninja Gaiden 2 more than I can here sometimes. So at least, you know what? Actually, hold on. Out of the main three, I think this one's definitely the easiest one. But I'd still say I'm starting to think maybe a 6. I'm starting to think maybe a 6. I feel like a 7's a little too high because you can do that spin scythe attack and it just eliminates most of it. Yeah, and Steel and Bone definitely makes the game a little bit easier too. But still hard as shit. So yeah, that's 7 out of 10. Okay. 7 out of 10 might be a little too high, but I might go back and change it to a 6 in the future. So I'd say either 6 or 7 out of 10. I'm probably just going to do 7 for now. And if something else comes along that's way harder, that drops this bitch down, then yeah, we'll drop this bitch down to 6. Like if I play OG Ninja Gaiden 2 and that's way harder, then oh yeah, this is getting knocked down. So that's a good number. But yeah, hopefully you guys look forward to Dante's Inferno. Like I said, it's done. I have, I think, 11 videos. So we'll start those soon. Hopefully by next week we might start getting them uploaded. And in terms of my main channel, I don't know. I wanted to do Metroid Zero Mission, but I just don't feel like doing Let's Plays. I mostly feel like doing guide stuff. And I have other things I'm working on too. I'm trying to do like an animation thing. I'm trying to learn a little bit about that. So yeah. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all next time. And as always, take care, everybody.